McAdoo reporting for Infowars.com. I am here with William and Dino Sheps. They are fans, but they also live here in Napa. Wanted to come say hi. You guys actually experienced the quake. Tell me about it.
Yeah, well, I woke up and I was terrified. I mean, it was like a bulldozer was rolling through my house, and, you know, I've never been woken up to something like that. You know, we had one a month prior. It was like a 3.5, and it woke me up. So when I felt this one, I kind of knew that it was an earthquake. And then, yeah, it hit, and then all the power was out. And I tried to call my brother, and I got a hold of him before the phones got turned off. And I was just in cold sweats, sitting on my bed, and I was just telling my brother, give me a second, because I was just completely in shock and nauseous from the 6.1. And then all you heard, you know, when I went to bed, all you heard, I left my screen open, all you heard was just sirens and dogs barking and helicopters. That was it. So, yeah. Wow. And then there you go.
State of emergency.
Absolutely. I honestly thought the Russians were dropping something. So it was pretty violent, you know, and that's just, you know, it's just scary. You feel helpless in situations like that, and you just gotta kind of roll with it and, you know, pray for the best. I definitely am thankful our house is okay, and we had power. PG&E was great. They really were. In emergencies like this, to see the community get together and work as a team, and you know, it was really good to see, honestly. You know, but we are right on the fault line, so you know, we've had 60 aftershocks, and you know, like we had one last night my brother was talking about. It was pretty scary. You don't know if the big one's gonna come or if we're done, or, you know, so you just kind of roll with it. But as far as everything is going, you know, I'm glad to see the reporters out here and covering the news, and you know, it's bad, but it's good. It's like a test to see how the community, like I was talking, you know, how everybody's going to work together and perform in emergencies. So, but as far as, you know, the earthquake, you know, we're on the San Andreas fault line, so we are an earthquake country. So this the risk of, I call it the hazards of life, you know, and you just take those risks.
Leanne McAdoo reporting for Infowars.com. I am on Meadowbrook Drive in a beautiful residential working-class community right here about a mile and a half outside of downtown Napa. This community is filled with friendly faces and family and a lot of children running around playing. And unbeknownst to them, this entire neighborhood was built directly on top of this relatively unknown fault line that was here. And you can see where the road has just separated into, it was pushed up against each other directly in this area. Sidewalks are about 3 feet high in some places. True to California fashion, some of the children have seen this as their opportunity to have their own makeshift bike ramps and skate ramps, trying to make the best of this situation. And you'll see these lines go directly from this house straight over to the house across the street. And it's like that through this entire neighborhood. Every parallel street that is running along this fault line has lifted sidewalks, lifted homes right off the foundation. People's homes jolted some 2 feet in some directions, and that's what they're seeing here in this neighborhood. Imagine this was your family. Imagine being here and knowing that your home is built.
Springmeyer coming on to do part 2 of the interview we did live. This is live as well, a few weeks ago on Secrets of the Illuminati in the context of what's currently happening in the world. What is the Illuminati? Is it just something out of history? Is it a fable? We'll give you some of those answers coming up with one of the leading experts on the subject. But what we know is Western groups, the same groups that are trying to destroy our countries, are trying to start a war with Russia, and I don't think that's too smart. After we take some of your calls, I'll get into the latest on Ebola, the latest on Obama's approval rating numbers, and a lot more. That's all coming up. Sean in Alaska, you're on the air, and you visited Ukraine. You want to give us your take on it. Go ahead.
Morning, Alex. Yeah, I've been there a couple times. Back in 2006, I was working for KBR in Iraq for, well, you know, for the operation over there. So I went over there, had a girlfriend, and she was gorgeous, just like you said earlier. And we dated for quite a while, and I learned a lot about the country. I was down in Crimea, went to Kiev, and she was telling me a lot of stories about there, about her grandmother during World War II, and the fact that, well, out there in Kiev, I guess they were set to execute a bunch of them. She survived. Her grandmother did by hiding in the Volga River, pregnant with her mother. And I just find it very sad that
Who was going to execute them? Commies or Nazis?
The Nazis.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, it really saddens me. I mean, to see all this happening, going on over there. It's one of my favorite countries I've ever been to. I've been maybe 12, 15 countries in the world. And like I said, it's one of my favorites. They got great wine, great women, great vodka, great land. And what I think Americans should do, I mean, not that it will ever happen, but we need to have like maybe an open carry march on Washington and just go arrest them all, you know?
Well, it's bigger than Washington. I appreciate your call. It's special interests that are manipulating all our countries that have an interest in chaos. It's government and culture by conquest, not by free market, not by the best ideas winning, not by the system of people voting with their dollars, voting with the decisions they make. It's more and more a global economy based on fraud run by the private European banks that call themselves the Federal Reserve. Really a private bank. And so I'm simply trying to get people to pull back outside the big paradigm that is controlled to the even bigger paradigm of basic human liberty. And to realize that if you got killed by Russians, you hate the Russians. If you got killed by the Nazis, you hate the Nazis. Ukraine has been exploited over and over again by different empires coming into it, whether it's Napoleon or the communist Russians. And if you look at the CIA and what other groups do, they have anthropologists and sociologists that study a country and figure out how to ethnically break it and get them fighting with each other. And first they'll raise ethnic awareness with political correctness. In the name of fighting ethnic strife, they will hype it up. Just like death education introduced in 1990 across the United States, within 3 years had massively increased. ABC News had a piece on it. You look it up, still online, back in like 2005. Within just a few years, actually 2020 did, within a few years it had massively increased. And a decade later, it was more than triple. You start teaching 12-year-olds how to commit suicide and telling them all about it, people start committing suicide. It was never even in their vernacular. They weren't even thinking about it. Well, you start hyping up, you know, in History Week, the wrongs against blacks or the wrongs against women or the wrongs against... They're taking reasonable ideas to talk about the wrongs that were done so they're not repeated, but then it becomes the next level of where that's the whole world. And so it's all people are is folks that have chips on their shoulders. And I mean, who does the Klan recruit from? Poor white people who want to have a chip on their shoulder. I mean, you take some racist black person, some racist white person, they probably dress the same, drive the same truck, have the same kind of blue-collar job, got the same problems with their kids, but they hate each other because of their skin color. Because it feels good to hate somebody and blame everything on that. And there are real issues there, and the big, smart technocrats will sit back and manipulate those differences. So I'm simply pointing at the higher-up echelons that admit they manipulate all this. Are race relations better under Obama than they were? They had a survey of black Americans just a few days ago that said overwhelmingly it's worse. Obama could have fixed race relations to a great extent, but that's not what he was designed to do. A large group of white people elected Barack Obama because they really wanted that. But they're only buying the surface of political correctness and the idea of, you know, neo-lib reconciliation. It only means, hey, turn your guns in, prove you're not racist.